What if I told you that you could plant vegetables just once and harvest from them for 10, 20, even 30 years? Most gardeners are stuck in this exhausting cycle, planting seeds every single spring, babying seedlings, fighting weeds, and by the time fall hits, you're starting from scratch all over again. But here's what commercial farmers and old-school gardeners have known for centuries. There are crops that act like fruit trees. You plant them once, and they keep producing year after year after year. Today, I'm revealing 10 perennial crops that'll completely transform your garden. These aren't your typical vegetables. We're talking about plants that come back stronger every season, require almost no maintenance, and save you hundreds of dollars in seeds and plants. Stick around for number 6. It's a leafy green that produces more food per square foot than almost any annual vegetable, and it thrives in partial shade. And number 10, it's been feeding families for thousands of years, and one plant can produce over 100 pounds of food. Let's dive in. Crop 1. Asparagus, the 25-year investment that pays off big. Asparagus is the king of perennial vegetables, and once you understand how it works, you'll wonder why anyone bothers with annual crops. Here's the deal. You plant asparagus crowns once, and if you do it right, that same patch will produce delicious spears for 20 to 25 years or more. I'm talking about decades of harvests from a single planting. The patience secret. The hard part, you have to wait. The first year after planting, you don't harvest anything. The second year, you harvest for maybe 2 weeks. But by year 3, that same patch explodes, and you're harvesting for 6 to 8 weeks every spring. Why it's worth it? Once established, asparagus requires almost no work, no replanting, no starting seeds, barely any weeding once the crowns fill in. It just comes back every spring like clockwork. Growing requirements. Climate. Zones 3 to 8 are ideal, needs winter chill. Canada and northern US, perfect. Asparagus loves cold winters. UK grows beautifully in the temperate climate. Southern US struggles without winter chill. The planting method. Plant crowns in a trench about 6 to 8 inches deep in early spring. Space them 12 to 18 inches apart. Give them full sun and decent drainage, and they'll reward you for decades. The flavor of fresh asparagus, harvested and cooked within an hour, is a completely different vegetable from the store-bought stuff. It's sweet, tender, and absolutely worth the wait. Crop 2. Rhubarb, the indestructible pie plant. If you want a crop that literally laughs at neglect, rhubarb is calling your name. This plant is so tough, so incredibly resilient, that you'll find it growing in abandoned farmsteads decades after the house has fallen down. It's basically indestructible. The production power. One rhubarb plant produces for 15 to 20 years or more. Once it's established, you can harvest armfuls of those beautiful red stalks from spring through early summer. The cold advantage. Here's what makes rhubarb special. It actually needs cold winters to thrive. This is a crop made for northern gardens. Climate sweet spot. Best in zones 3 to 8. Canada and northern US, this is your crop. Thrives in cold climates. UK, absolutely perfect, especially for forced early rhubarb. Southern US, struggles without winter chill. The easy factor. Plant a crown in spring or fall, give it full sun to partial shade, and just let it grow. The first year, don't harvest. Year 2, take a few stalks. Year 3 and beyond, harvest as much as you want. Divide the crowns every 5 to 7 years to keep them productive and to create new plants. Important, the leaves are toxic, never eat them, but those tart, tangy stalks? Perfect for pies, jams, compotes, or my favorite, roasted with honey and ginger. Crop 3. Walking onions, the Egyptian onions, the onion that plants itself. This is where things get weird and wonderful. Walking onions don't produce flowers, they produce clusters of tiny bulbs at the top of their stalks. These bulbs get so heavy that the stalk bends over and plants them a few feet away from the parent plant. Over time, your patch of walking onions literally walks across your garden. It's bizarre, it's fascinating, and it's incredibly useful. The forever onion. Plant them once and you'll have onions forever. The underground bulbs are edible, the greens are edible, those little top-set bulbs, also edible. All-season harvest. Harvest greens like scallions from early spring through fall. Dig bulbs anytime. Collect top sets in summer for replanting or eating. Climate adaptation. Hardy zones 3 to 9. Incredibly cold hardy and heat tolerant. Grow well across Canada, US, and UK. They're one of the first things to emerge in spring, sometimes poking through snow, and they keep growing until hard frost. The multiplication magic. Start with 12 plants, and within a few years, you'll have hundreds. Give them away, eat them constantly, and they'll still spread.
Crop 4. Sorrel, the lemony salad green that never quits. If you love salads but hate planting lettuce every few weeks, sorrel is about to become your new obsession. Sorrel has this bright, lemony, almost citrusy flavor that wakes up your taste buds. It's tangy, refreshing, and unlike any store-bought green. The production secret. One plant produces armfuls of leaves from early spring through fall. You harvest the outer leaves, and the center keeps producing new ones. It's the cut-and-come-again champion of the perennial world. The longevity. A single sorrel plant can produce for 5 to 10 years or more. Planted once, harvest for a decade. Growing simplicity. Zones 3 through 9, full sun to partial shade, actually prefers some shade in hot climates, tolerates poor soil. All regions. Grows well in Canada, USA, and UK. How to use it. Use young leaves raw in salads. They add this incredible bright, acidic note. Older leaves are better cooked in soups or sauces. Classic French sorrel soup is incredible. The flavor is so strong that you don't need much. A handful of sorrel leaves transforms a boring salad into something special. Crop 5. Horseradish, the root that won't quit. Horseradish is not a perennial vegetable. It's a perennial invasion force. Plant it once and you'll be dealing with it for the rest of your life. And I mean that in the best possible way. The flavor bomb. Fresh horseradish is nothing like the jarred stuff from the store. When you grate fresh horseradish root, it releases these volatile compounds that clear your sinuses instantly. The heat is intense, clean, and absolutely addictive. The growing truth. Horseradish is incredibly aggressive. One small root piece will become a massive plant within a year. The roots spread, and every tiny piece left in the soil becomes a new plant. The strategy is, most people plant horseradish in a container or in a dedicated patch where it can spread without taking over the entire garden. Climate tolerance, zones 2 through 9, one of the most cold-hardy perennials, actually prefers colder climates, perfect for Canada, northern USA, and UK. Harvest method. In fall, dig up the roots. Take what you need for the year, replant a few pieces, and the cycle continues. Grate it fresh for cocktail sauce, mix it with cream for a condiment, or preserve it in vinegar. The flavor is powerful, medicinal, and nothing like the commercial stuff. Crop 6. Good King Henry, the forgotten perennial spinach. This is the plant most gardeners have never heard of, and that's a shame because it's one of the most productive perennial vegetables you can grow. Good King Henry is an old European vegetable that was a staple crop for centuries before modern spinach took over. The triple harvest. This plant gives you 3 different crops: spring shoots that taste like asparagus, leaves all season long that taste like spinach, and flower buds that can be eaten like broccoli. 1 plant, 3 vegetables, and it produces from early spring through late fall. The shade advantage. Here's what makes it perfect for 2025. Unlike most vegetables that demand full sun, Good King Henry actually grows better in partial shade. It's perfect for that tricky spot under trees or on the north side of buildings. Climate range. Zones 3 through 9, prefers cooler climates, can tolerate some shade and poor soil. Ideal for UK, native to Europe, Canada, and northern USA. The production. 1 plant produces more edible biomass per square foot than almost any annual vegetable, and it keeps producing for 10+ years. It's harder to find, not sold in most garden centers, but specialty seed companies carry it. Plant it once, and you'll be harvesting for decades. Crop 7. Sea kale, the gourmet vegetable that thrives on neglect. This is one of those vegetables that sounds fancy, looks impressive, and is actually ridiculously easy to grow. It's native to the coastal areas of Europe, growing wild on beaches and cliffs where conditions are harsh, salty air, poor soil, intense sun, and wind. If it can handle that, your garden is a vacation resort. The blanched delicacy. The traditional way to harvest sea kale is to blanch the shoots in early spring by covering the plant with a bucket or pot. This makes the shoots pale, tender, and incredibly mild-flavored, like a cross between asparagus and celery with a slight nuttiness. The perennial power. Sea kale lives for 10 to 15 years or more, producing more shoots each year as the plant matures. Growing conditions: zones 4 through 9, full sun, well-drained soil, even sandy or gravelly, salt-tolerant, coastal areas absolutely perfect. UK, traditional British vegetable, grows beautifully. Canada, USA, underutilized but very productive. The low-maintenance beauty. Plant it, ignore it, harvest it in spring. That's basically the entire care routine. The bluish-green foliage is attractive all season, and the white flowers in summer are beautiful. It's edible landscaping at its finest.
Crop 8. Turkish Rocket, Bunius orientalis, the wild green that never dies. Turkish Rocket is not well known, and it probably never will be because it's too easy to grow and too aggressive for commercial production. But for home gardeners, it's a gift. The flavor? Young leaves taste like a mild, slightly peppery arugula. As they mature, they get stronger and are better cooked. The flower buds can be eaten like broccoli, and they're delicious. The indestructible nature. Turkish Rocket survives drought, poor soil, deep shade, and extreme cold. It's one of those plants that seems to thrive on neglect. Climate adaptability. Zones 3 to 9. Tolerates extreme cold and heat. Grows in full sun or partial shade. All regions, incredibly adaptable. The warning: it can be aggressive. It self-seeds readily. Planted somewhere it can naturalize without becoming a problem. But the payoff? You'll have fresh greens from early spring, often one of the first things to emerge, through late fall. One planting gives you decades of harvests. Crop 9. Jerusalem artichokes, or sunchokes, the perennial potato. We touched on sunchokes earlier, but they deserve a deeper look because they're one of the highest-yielding perennial vegetables you can grow. One plant produces 5 to 10 pounds of tubers, and every tiny piece of tuber left in the soil becomes a new plant the next year. The calorie crop. If you're looking for a perennial staple crop, something that can provide serious calories, sunchokes are it. They're starchy, filling, and delicious. The growing reality. They grow 6 to 10 feet tall. They spread aggressively. They're nearly impossible to kill. This isn't a plant you casually tuck into a flower bed. Give them their own dedicated space or plant them in a large container. Climate range. Zones 3 to 9. One of the most cold-hardy perennials. Tolerates terrible soil and drought. Perfect for cold climates where perennial crops are limited. The harvest. Dig tubers from fall through early spring. They store in the ground beautifully. You can literally harvest them fresh all winter in many climates. Roast them, they caramelize beautifully. Make soup, fry them like chips, or mash them like potatoes. The caution: sunchokes contain inulin, a type of fiber that can cause digestive issues in some people. Start with small amounts and see how your body handles them. Crop 10. Tree collards, the vegetable that becomes a tree. This is the grand finale, and it's going to blow your mind. Tree collards are exactly what they sound like. Collard greens that grow into an actual tree-like structure, reaching 6 to 12 feet tall and living for 10 to 20 years or more. The production? One mature tree collard can produce over 100 pounds of edible leaves per year. That's not a typo. 100 pounds from a single plant. You can harvest leaves year-round in mild climates, and the plant just keeps producing. The flavor? Unlike annual collards that can be tough and bitter, Tree collards are tender, mild, and sweet, especially after a light frost. Climate considerations. Best in zones 7 to 10, but can be grown in colder zones with protection. UK, southern regions, can work, especially in protected spots. Southern USA, absolutely perfect. Northern USA/Canada, challenging. Need to overwinter indoors or in a greenhouse. The propagation secret. Tree collards don't produce seeds. You propagate them from cuttings, which root incredibly easily. Take a 6 to 8 inch cutting, stick it in soil or water, and within a few weeks you have a new plant. The investment? One plant costs $15 to $30, but considering it can produce for 10 to 20 years and you can create unlimited new plants from cuttings, the return on investment is incredible. Use the leaves anywhere you'd use regular collards, sautéed with garlic, in soups, or traditionally cooked with smoked meat. Why perennial crops change everything. Let's talk about what these 10 crops really mean for your garden and your life. Time savings. No more spending weekends starting seeds, hardening off seedlings, and transplanting. These crops are planted once and then largely ignored. Money savings. The average gardener spends $70 to $100 per year on seeds and starts. These 10 crops eliminate that expense. You invest once and harvest for decades. Climate resilience. Perennial crops develop deep root systems that make them incredibly drought-tolerant and resilient to weird weather. As climate becomes more unpredictable, perennials become more valuable. Soil building. Unlike annual crops that you till up every year, perennials stay in place. Their roots create soil structure, feed soil biology, and actually improve your garden over time. The trade-off? Yes, you need patience with some of these crops, especially asparagus and rhubarb, but that initial patience pays off with decades of effortless harvests. How to get started. You don't need to plant all 10 at once. Here's my recommendation. Year 1, start with 3 to 4 crops that excite you most and that fit your climate. Maybe asparagus, rhubarb, and walking onions. Year 2, add 2 to 3 more, maybe horseradish, sorrel, and sunchokes. Year 3, fill in the rest based on what's working and what you're actually eating. Within 3 years, you'll have a perennial food forest that requires minimal work and produces massive amounts of food. That's your complete guide to crops that grow like fruit trees. Asparagus, rhubarb, walking onions, sorrel, horseradish, good King Henry, sea kale, Turkish rocket, sunchokes, and tree collards. These aren't just vegetables, they're investments in your future, your food security, and your garden's long-term productivity. If you're excited about perennial gardening, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and hit that bell icon. There's so much more to explore in the world of low-maintenance, high-yield gardening. Drop a comment and tell me which of these crops are you most excited to try. Have you already grown any of them? What's been your experience? I read every comment and I love hearing about your gardens. Thank you so much for watching. Here's to planting once and eating forever. Now go create that perennial paradise. I'll see you in the next video.